you, and they kind of they think somehow it's your fault that you're getting attacked or messed with. I know even this morning they were saying, if you weren't such a tree hugger, you wouldn't get attacked. And I was thinking, I think I can be anything I want. Hi, I'm Iver Lofving, and this is the mural that I painted last winter for Westchester Arts Council. And it's the history of Skowhegan from 1820 to 2022. And it runs, the timeline moves along, and the seasons move along. And the big people are kind of in the bottom here, and then it moves up until you get to smaller people and landscape elements on the top. And of course it says Skowhegan for context up top.
What is peak oil? Peak oil takes its name from the bell-shaped curve which typifies the production profile of any oil field or oil-producing nation. Once an oil field is discovered, oil wells are drilled, production rises, reaches a peak, and then drops until the reservoir is exhausted. Peak oil is not the point of time when oil runs out. It is the point of time when roughly half of the ultimately available oil has been consumed.
I have been fascinated by the concept of peak oil, and it kind of colors everything. It's the key to understanding pretty much everything that's going on nowadays. And then the shale oil took over and everybody went back to sleep. Meanwhile, we managed to halve our fossil fuel consumption in our house, but live just as well. In fact, we live better, and we're still cutting it down. So we made a film called Peak Oil: A Love Story, and did a spot on CNN, and tried to get the word out, but to no avail. It was a very well-made film, but not a very popular subject, but it's on YouTube now, and it's called Peak Oil, ... A Love Story. So we're not, a lot of the things we're getting for energy are not enough to run a modern society. So I think it's great. We keep getting more. We got more all the way through the early 2000s, and then now we're hitting a point where we're not getting more.
Good evening, everyone. We are in Maine tonight, and we are with Ivor, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House. I am so excited tonight to have you with me, Ivor. It is a pleasure. And guys, I have to tell you, Ivor went to school 20 minutes from me, college. He knows where I live, and he knows the area, so it's really exciting. So hi and welcome, and tell everybody all about yourself.
Hi, my name's Iver Lofving, and I live here in Skowhegan, Maine. I also live on the coast in the summer, so I try to live a simple life as we can here, and try to cut down on the amount of fossil fuels and things we're using. And I'm very obsessed with things like peak oil and actually climate change lately.
Oh,
really,
yeah.
Climate change, yeah.
Well, it's great to have you. I was looking at your videos and your art. It's just so sweet, and how you made that beautiful mural where you live. We are a very art-loving crowd on our channel, and I just really quickly want to just say hi to Kim, the moderator, and say hi to Scott and Jean, who moderates the channel, and hi everyone. And welcome. And we're not going to just talk about peak oil. The first thing, what I really want to know about you is, let's talk about your art, or where you've been and how you got to where you are in Maine. And then we'll get on to energy and all. We want to get to know you.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'm from New York originally,
I was born in New York City, just like I pictured it. And I grew up in Westchester County, north of New York City.
Me too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I went to Alfred, which I really enjoyed Alfred. I went to Syracuse for a while, but I found that wasn't my kind of place. I went to Alfred and that's my alma mater. That's the place that I really feel like, that's the place that I really felt like
Yeah.
I found home. And then I did all sorts of things. I moved back to New York City and I worked in different places. I took care of tropical plants in New York City and different things, and worked on farms and things. And then I went to the Peace Corps
Oh,
and I was
that's
there for
cool.
2 years. Yeah, 2 years, and I lived there and in Costa Rica, and I worked with Mayan people up in the mountains. The actually they were called the Kekchi Mayans, but I also worked with Pokumchi and other what do you call it, Rabinalachi, some other people there too. So I really got to know that third world milieu. I got to know, people use a lot less energy down there.
Oh,
So you
yes.
get-
Our
Yeah.
moderator, Jean, right in the chat, she lives in Costa Rica.
Oh yeah.
So, hi, Jean.
Hi, Jane. Are these people on now? Is this going to be shown? Is this on
This
YouTube?
is live. We're on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Twitter and X, and we're live on Twitch.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're multi-streaming everywhere.
It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
used to watching you on the live show with Andre, and you could talk about that channel actually, and what you do with them. But all right,
Yeah.
keep going because your
So
story is interesting, and we have so much in common.
So then, how they say people who are lost have a tendency to wander northeast. So I wandered into Maine, but also I have to admit that my family had been coming here for the last 100 years. They came to a little island in Maine. So I kind of followed. My parents were living here, so I have to admit I came up here and got a job and things. And then I was a Peace Corps representative for 6 years at the University of Maine and got my master's degree and teaching certificate. And then I,
Awesome.
married my wife now, and we moved to Skowhegan, where I taught for 28 years.
28 years. What'd you teach?
High school Spanish and art.
I had a feeling it was art. Yes.
Yeah, Spanish, yeah.
And
And,
Spanish.
it was a fairly good gig. I got to, I like teaching. I like the kids a lot. I don't miss the administration at all, but I kind of miss the crazy teenagers.
Oh, I know how you feel. I worked in higher ed for my career. So administration is, and I was administration.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
But doesn't mean I had to like it. So,
No,
All
but
right.
I really miss the crazy teenage energy. They're always I don't know, the drama and crazy things they do and
so
stuff. And
what grade was it?
Well, high school. And so we did, I had an outing club where we'd go camping and skiing and, kayaking and different things. And they really loved that. So, and it was great because a lot of the kids
Great.
were not from pretty limited means. So we figured out a way to get, we did something called Cash for Trash, which was pretty neat. We'd clean up a town park and we'd get donations from all the local people, and then we'd get which was kind of fun. We got the dump truck, from town. So we'd fill the dump truck up with stuff, and then they'd have money in their accounts, and we'd go camping and skiing and up to Katahdin, which is the really beautiful mountain here, and sometimes even in the winter. And we did all sorts of
Wow.
adventures, and that was really fun.
So you were the cool teacher.
Yeah, well, I thought I was anyway.
It sounds like, hey, I would have liked you to be my teacher. All those trips.
I think I was,
Wow.
But no, I would say overall, yeah, they really like me.
That's great. So let me ask you a question through all your travels and your life. When did you understand our predicament?
Oh, I started understanding it. I think I really started understanding it early on. I was in the 1970s or 80s. I kind of began to realize what was going on. I think I saw limits to growth, that kind of stuff back then. But then what happened was one of my students, which was kind of interesting, he was really smart and he turned me on to a website called Die Off. which is a pretty dark
Oh.
website. Jay Hanson's website back in
Oh
19.
yeah.
So of course I kind of ignored it for a while. I got a bigger truck. I drove around. I like denial is there was is heavy, and then I began to realize, oh, this thing is it's real.
Yeah.
And I'd say around the what actually did it to me was 9/11 happened, and I started digging, into the nature of reality, and I sort of started figuring it out, and I began to realize that this is like they say, have you ever heard all wars are for God? No,
Yes.
gold, oil, or drugs, right? That's God, gold, oil.
God. That's a good
So
one.
there's always
All wars are for gold, oil, or drugs. You got
yeah,
it.
all wars are for God. So anyway, so I started digging, and I kind of figured out, oh, that's what's going on here. Really,
Oh.
it's especially once they switched us to Iraq, which was kind of stupid,
The whole
and
war, all of the wars, but I that one particularly was pretty awful.
it was
They're all
evil.
awful.
But it's also they're after this, the master resource. They have to get the stuff,
The master resource. My
Yeah,
gosh. So, okay. Let's just before we really dig deep into the peak oil thing. So
yeah.
you learned about the predicament. You learned about our climate. Did you have anybody particular that you really felt kinship with that you followed that taught you?
Oh
Was
yeah,
it James Hansen?
well, you mean the climate scientist?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean for peak oil, I would say my big people were Colin Campbell, all those early peak oil people, even James Howard Kunstler before he fell
Yeah.
in,
I know. Counselor changed, didn't he? God.
before he fell into the crazy cult. But I mean, just in general, I knew about all these people and what they were doing, but I also knew, I began to pay a lot of attention to climate, and James Hansen, and even Al Gore. I was in a call in the third act the other day, and Al Gore was there talking, and you just realize early on, okay, things are happening, and it wasn't as obvious as it is this year, but it was definitely getting more obvious that things are changing. I mean,
Oh, it's 15. Today was even 15 degrees above average. It's all above average all the time.
yeah, I mean,
It's
I'm trying to pick out a little bit of time for a tiny little maple season, and I'm not getting it.
That's very interesting because that's what people do around here. Friends of mine do maple also, and that's why I'm so excited because you know exactly where
Yeah,
I am. You love the county. Letchworth State Park is beautiful, and
yeah,
yeah,
it's a
that's
gorgeous
great.
place. All around Allegheny County, we used to love going there and down into Genesee County in Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
Really beautiful places. Yeah.
Yeah, you've had very nice experiences in the places you've been. But
Oh yeah.
Maine has been the longest anywhere, right? 35 years, you said? I think
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
that.
I've lived here longer than everywhere else.
Yeah. Are you near the coast?
Where I am now, it's about it's 2 hours from the place that I go on the coast, but it's maybe an hour and a half, hour or so from
Okay.
the coast, closest.
Well, I put the background as the Maine coast,
Oh
but
yeah, but I
it's
spend a lot of
pretty.
time. I teach
Yeah.
sailing in the summer to kids on a
Oh,
little island in Maine, so I spend a lot of time on the coast, and I have a little uh, like an antique shop, a knick-knack shop, and art studio on Swan's Island.
that's cool.
Yeah, it's
So,
great.
so when did you know you were an artist? I mean, when did this develop? Was it childhood? Was it something later?
Well, there was like a little story. I was at the
Let's hear
my
it.
I was at my high school reunion, and this woman came up to me and she sort of related a story to me, and her name was Margaret. But she's telling me this very seriously. The story that I was sitting there and I was drawing like on the wall, as in kindergarten, and drawing like I don't know, a school bus or a submarine or something or other. Anyway, then the teacher came up and she asked, "Who did this?" And Margaret thought that the teacher was gonna praise her. She was like, this is years later. She tells me this, and so then I've moved on, and I'm over here drawing Godzilla or something on the wall or something. Anyway, and she's like, you mustn't draw on the wall, Margaret.
Oh no.
It's like a real sort of tragic thing for her, but I'm like whatever, I don't care.
Kind
So
of
maybe,
like a movie.
yeah. Poor Margaret. Poor
Yeah.
Margaret. She told me this very seriously. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I don't know. I was like,
Right.
So I've been like, okay, let's just do these things. Let's just make things, whatever. And I realized,
Nice.
that's kind of, you have to kind of keep tapping into that. As an artist, it's almost like you just have to keep making weird things. It's just the way it is.
You think it's weird? You think your art is weird?
You're weird. No, you're weird. Just being an artist is like, you really
Yeah.
have to be almost like, you have to like be content with not being in the mainstream kind
I
of,
suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I don't know. I've been weird all my life. I
Yeah.
haven't been an artist all my life, but I'm a video artist now. But
Oh, yeah.
I haven't been an artist all my life. But I would say maybe in my work, I always put art in my work, even though it was, I wasn't a teacher. I trained, but I wasn't that. But okay, this is about you, not me. I
Okay.
would like to go to, all right, so we know you were a teacher, you've traveled, you've had an interesting life. When did you start activism? Because I know you're an activist too, and you're
Yeah.
still doing things. So let's take a trip down your activism road.
Well, my activism, I've been sort of active. I would say I started probably after I got out of the Peace Corps. I went on a couple of trips to DC, protests in DC.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had just gotten back from Central America, and I kind of felt like, like, what are we doing killing these people from Central America? So we went to a protest in DC. And, of course, the day that we got there, of course, we drive this van all the way down there and then get out. And of course, it snows in DC. But anyway, it was like in March in DC. We were able to march around, and some people had broccoli on a stick because this is during George Bush, and they knew he didn't like it, the broccoli.
I remember. I'm
Yeah.
old enough to remember. Guys, if you're not old enough to remember George Bush, there was a big joke. If there were memes back then, the broccoli, him not liking broccoli would have been it.
He hated broccoli, but
Yeah.
here we are marching along, and then all of a sudden we got in front of the White House, and I looked, and there were 6 buses on one side and 6 buses on the other side, and they were backing up. And I realized they had set up like a Central American village on a road right in front of the White House, and I realized that everybody who was on the road was going to get arrested.
What year was that?
This must have been 1987.
It was
or
in
something.
the 80s? Okay.
Yeah, it was
All right.
late 80s. So anyway, I realized if I don't, and I was in graduate school, so I thought if I get arrested down here, I'll never get back to Maine in time to, do my classes and things. And so I stepped back onto the grass, and everybody in front of me got arrested. All those people.
And you did not.
I did not, because I was
Wow.
a little bit of a chicken, but I just decided, well, it's like, okay, how much do I care about this? But I think I would be willing to do it for certain things. And anyway, after that, I got involved in, I went to DC again for the climate protest.
Yeah.
And it was probably not that long ago, 2016 or something.
I
2018.
went. I was in 2018. I went too. I
The
was
big
there.
one. Yeah, 2018. That's what
Yep.
it was. And it was neat because there was a Maine drum. A friend of mine has a big drum, and it has like, you pound on the drum.
Mhm.
You didn't have to worry about
Pretty sure
losing
they
Maine
passed by.
contingent. Did you hear it?
Yeah.
You heard it, yeah.
Mhm.
Peter Frank. And it was a big rolling drum. So then I could go
Yeah.
off, get a hot dog or something, and then run back and find the main drum and keep walking along. So I got involved in that. And then I also, in fact, I will admit, because I can do it now. I think it's past we stopped a train one time, a tar sands train. And it was that type of, it was the back end super light crude that actually would actually blow up, right?
Ooh.
didn't know that until a couple months later. The one happened up in Quebec near us. The actual train blew up, right? So we decided this is not a good thing, and I was just providing sort of like a we sort of stopped traffic a little bit, and I was wearing a mask the whole time, so I figured it was okay. But I was walking back to my car, and a cop stops me, and he says, "Can you, hi, do you mind giving me your name?" And I said, "Do I have to?" He said, "No." I said, "Do you mind telling me what group you're with?" And I said, "Well, I'm with 350 Central Maine." And he said, "What is that?" And I said,
What
"Well,
is that?
350 is the safe level of carbon dioxide in the air.
It
And
was
right now, we're
blown by.
85, right? We're at 385 and it's growing. And really what we want to do is get down to 280 and all this stuff." And his eyes started rolling. He goes, "Get out of here." And I'm like, "Sir, yes, sir." And ran to my car.
Sir, yes, sir.
There were like 20 cop cars there. I was like, "Oh my God, what am I doing here?" So that was my closest thing. But, this is the thing. If you're not willing to get upset about really the end of
The
human
world.
civilization, then like, what are you really,
Listen, Elliot, you know Elliot Jacobson?
No.
Okay, Elliot is on Twitter. I don't know if you're on Twitter X, but Elliot is a person who was in academics. Also, he's but he's a statistical analysis mathematician person, and he put up something today on Twitter. It was, what are the most important issues to Americans?
Yeah.
And climate change and the environment type issues were not even on there at the time at
No.
all. And I think without a livable climate and destroying the environment, we won't have health care. We won't have equal rights. We won't have anything anywhere on the planet. I'm surprised you don't know Elliot. I'll have to hook you two up.
I'll look him up, Elliot Jacobson. I don't
Yeah.
go on any of that stuff, or whatever it's called. Anyway, but so I don't know. I've been involved in that kind of thing, especially lately. I've been involved
The
in
local stuff, which is good.
and I get Maine State Retirement. Have you heard of that? So
Yeah.
Maine State Retirement is like MPERS. It's like, how there's CalPERS or whatever it is. So I'm MPERS, Maine MEPERS, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just day before yesterday, we went and they were having a big meeting about divesting from fossil fuels. And there's an LD 99 is a Maine state law that says that the MEPERS is supposed to divest from fossil fuels, right?
Okay, that's why I saw your pictures.
We're definitely they're supposed to divest from fossil fuels. So I'm just going to go get to this one quote. It's really entertaining. Here's here's what the person says. The sort of the Maine MEPERS CEO, Rebecca
All right,
White.
let's hear this.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
The trustees absolutely have to act in the best interest of those pension recipients as beneficiaries, not as people who live on the earth, but as beneficiaries. That's what she said. So I was thinking, like, okay, yeah, we have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that they get,
Oh my
I
God.
agree. I want to get a good check and stuff, but
Sure. But
Yeah.
you're a beneficiary. We need to be beneficiaries of a decent planet as long as we have something
Yeah.
left. Oh my
the other thing
God.
is we actually live on Earth,
Oh, Ivor, people are so stupid.
Well, I just thought it was an excellent. I don't, really know, but they all seem kind of smart and stuff. But
No,
she
but
just
you can be intellectually smart, but you can also be, she's so into her job, she can't see beyond the financial aspect.
she just stuck her foot in her mouth. But you could just see how funny it is. We have to continue to, and they basically were saying
Yeah.
we can't change what we're doing, even though it's against the law.
Wow.
We have a fiduciary responsibility, and they're supposed to be fossil fuel free by 2026. But they said we can't comply with the law because we have a fiduciary responsibility.
Right.
In other words,
Right.
it'd be like me saying, I'm making so much money, selling crack that I know it's illegal, but I stop it, right?
Yeah, right. I
You know,
hear
I mean,
you. It is
thing
kind of the same thing. So what are they invested in? They don't have a like a social choice investment. They don't have
oh,
different portfolios.
I
They
don't even
really
know.
have to be in fossil fuels.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to them and it was like unbelievable.
Wow.
So, but basically, they said, we're going to have a very hard time cutting it. Right now, they're like, I don't know, 6 or 8%. So, and they can't cut that last bit because of their fiduciary
Right.
responsibility.
I remember this stuff because I was over HR, so it was that fell in my purview. But we, the Research Foundation of SUNY was where I worked, and they made an effort to divest. I mean,
Yeah.
we were researchers. I mean, there were, they did. So I was happy about that.
Well, they're making an effort, but they're just not making enough of an effort
Right.
to
I hear
actually
you.
comply with the law. So,
Yeah.
but it's just one thing. I mean, we know.
Honey, it's always just one thing, right? But these one things are blowing up in our faces every day. Pretty
Oh yeah,
much. Oh, let me we're live so I could put this one up. Stephen K. Fiduciary responsibility.
exactly, exactly.
I could give you a little applause. Yay! All
Yeah,
right. Thanks, Stephen. All
yeah,
right. All right. See, when you have a live show, you can play around a
yeah.
lot. When you
That's
have,
great.
I got all the bells and whistles. We make it fun here. This is fun.
Yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
yeah. So, all right. They did their fiduciary responsibility. And that's your local like little activism, which I saw, which is nice because I always try to get involved in things here. And I also tell others, it's local is where it's at. That when you look at the big things, you're overwhelmed. So let's go to another thing you were talking about, your home experience, what you've done in your life to make it a little bit better.
Oh, yeah.
Cumulatively, we can make it better. Will it make a difference? We don't know, but it makes us feel better.
Well, it's also the antidote to despair is doing things. Otherwise I
Mm-hmm.
feel like massive sense of despair. I mean, this is my little cheap psychology is I find when when I'm not doing something kind of creative and making
Right.
things happen, I sink into like a despair thing. So it's almost like I have to keep pushing forward, do something. Like politically, I've been getting signatures for local candidates, and we sort of did a little Hail Mary this last week, getting a candidate enough signatures, and you have to get them all, you know, checked out by the local town and
Sure,
all
on
that.
a deadline.
And we got them in 2 hours before the deadline.
Well, good. I hope it's a good candidate and has a shot. Is it
Oh yeah,
is it
she's got a shot.
is it a red? I don't know much about Maine's
Oh
politics. It's a red state, a mixed state? What
no,
is it?
Maine is sort of like a split state. Maine can split
Purple.
it's I would say it's purple, but it's blue on the bottom and red on the top. And the thing about it is
Like New
there
York.
are two electoral districts, so therefore one can go to one party and one can go to the other party. So
Oh,
that makes me very interested in Maine for about a couple of days. Anyway, and then they all forget
okay.
it.
They all forget it. Yeah, all right. Well, that's cool that your candidate has a shot because I know that our congressional candidate here, we just learned who it was. Nobody wants to run against Nick Langworthy, who is, I say, a milk toast, boring, right wing Trump ass licking toady. I don't
Oh, really?
like. Yeah, he's horrible. And this guy that's running against him is, I the last time we had a really great guy, Max Delapia, he actually had a glacier named after him in Antarctica. He had
Wow.
worked up there. He was such a good candidate, but around here, the assholes are really not very bright politically at all. They've bought the bullshit, and probably a lot of them, even though we live in an area where they've seen the changes, the farmers know, the Amish know.
Oh yeah.
You
Well, here
remember that.
we know, but the what we wanted to do was we just want to run a horse in every race. I mean, that's the big thing. We went and got signatures for a state Senate candidate, and then we went and got signatures for two House candidates. So I figure I've done my bit. Like we're running around and get these people on the ballot,
Hmm.
and so then they're not running unopposed, which is, that's the worst when you have a.
Do they talk about environmental issues or the climate crisis?
Hard not to in Maine because you know that we have had three major sort of disasters in the last couple months. We had a huge rainstorm that melted a whole bunch of snow, and we had a flood in my town, knocked out all the bridges
No
in
shit.
the area. All the bridges were closed, and the electricity was out for some people 4 or 5 days, and we
Oh.
couldn't go anywhere. So the only thing we could do was just go down and watch the flood, and then
Oh.
meanwhile, two huge sea level, the highest sea level rise in, since 1978. And it took out wharfs, took out
Wow.
uh, all sorts of things on the coast. So this has just been in the last month or two. So it's very hard to ignore what is going on here now. Most people, they're going to try. They're going to say, oh, whatever. But I mean, you can't.
So,
You
what are
look
the kind of conversations you have with your local friends?
Well, my local friends, I mean, it's pretty obvious. You just say, well, we're going to have to do something, you know, we're going to have to do something about like sea level rise, for example. I used to own a 1/8 share of a wharf, like a wharf with giant posts, like this big, gigantic
Giant
posts,
posts. Okay.
and stacked hemlock timbers with lobster pots on top, lobster traps on top of it. It all just disappeared. It washed away, the whole thing.
Wow.
Lifted it up, took it away. So
Well, lobster's not sustainable anyway. I hate
yeah,
it.
lobster is sustainable. Lobster is the most sustainable fishery in the world.
It is?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I will fight that because lobster is the only
I
one
don't
where
know. I just don't eat lobster
no,
personally. I have a
lobster.
lot of vegans in our chat.
I think it's fine not to eat lobster, but let me just say the lobster is the only fishery where they figured out how to conserve the stocks
Oh,
because they have a measure and they measure how big the lobster is. And if it's an egger or a female,
yeah.
they let them back down there. And they basically, the lobstermen in Maine have managed to maintain the resource for 100 something years, whereas most fisheries, they just go out and wipe it right out, and then they go,
Yeah.
"Oh, we should have done something." And
Oh, yeah.
so now though, you can't fight climate change. What happens is the water gets too warm, and the lobsters get shell wasting disease, like they did down in Long Island Sound, Connecticut, all those places, all the way up to part of Massachusetts. They're all gone. There's no lobstering happening. And when we were kids, there were lobstermen
Oh, it's a
in.
lot different. I know. Wow. My folks had a place on Martha's Vineyard. My mother married somebody. They got together and they built this little tiny house back in the early 80s on Martha's Vineyard. They didn't even realize it was going to be crazy up there. It wasn't that crazy yet.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Holy
and I'll bet
shit.
you could go down to the wharf on Martha's Vineyard back then and buy some lobster, local
Yeah,
lobster.
my mom did.
Right, right.
I wouldn't even stay in the room when she cooked it. She
No, no,
was
my.
I had to leave. It was not my thing. It
No,
was
I know.
horrible. It was horrible, but what are you gonna do? It's called tradition. That's what it's, tradition for people. Do they have lobster farms? You know how they have wild caught versus no, you can't do
Now,
it.
the thing about lobster is it's always been a wild caught thing, and in a
Yeah,
way, it's almost like farmed anyway because kind of they drop bait down and they pull up lobsters, and
right.
you're like feeding them until they get to big enough to pull them up and keep them.
Holy shit. Do you
Yeah.
talk about this what or the fishermen? Do you have people friends that are in the I mean, this is big.
Oh yeah. Oh
So
yeah. I've got a lot of friends who are fishermen.
so what are they saying? What are
Well,
they thinking about the F word future?
the future, yeah, because what they're already doing is they're not switching, but they're in addition to lobstering, they have an oyster farm,
Okay.
and you didn't
So
used to do that.
so oyster farming is now the new lobster. They
It's just a
farm
different.
them. Yeah.
It's just additional. You have to have
Oh.
something, and if the one goes, then the other one might make it. So oysters are becoming the new thing.
In the restaurants. Would you like a half dozen or a dozen oysters?
Yeah,
Oysters on the half shell?
right off the wharf, right off the wharf. You just like get a
Uh,
little spoon, and I like. Well, I used to work in a place, and I used to serve oysters, so I'm really good at opening them. So I would like open up like 6 or 8 of them, and then scoop them out, and it tastes like you're eating the ocean.
oh,
They're
yeah, I
great.
guess. Yeah. All
Great.
right. Well, it's lot. So, what do you see? Is it sustainable? Which I hate that word, but I mean, is it? What do you see with the fishing industry besides oysters? Because that's sort of manufactured problem. But
No,
it's
oysters don't use anything. They don't feed them. They don't do anything. They just have them grow in a cage.
all right. They grow in a
So they're
cage, but I'm
actually,
talking about wild fishing. Just like 50-year ago fishing.
forget it. It's all gone. I mean, like you can go out and try to get a codfish or something, and once in a while you'll get a codfish, but basically all those big. I used to work on a wharf on Swans Island, and we were landing a lot of ground fish. We'd like, bring them in, and they had gill nets and things, and
Yeah.
all that is done. It's done. There's none of it. They can't catch
Jeez.
anything. There's
So
nothing
where
up
the
there.
hell are the supermarkets getting all this fish that they seem to have this endless array when you go to Wegmans?
Well, have you noticed what they are? Like you go there and
Farm raised.
fish. Well, even if they're wild caught, here's the scary thing: is pollock. Pollock will grow to enormous size. They'll go to
Yeah.
like 6 or 8 feet long. Enormous fish, right?
Okay.
No, they catch them in Alaska, and they're the size of a mackerel. They're tiny. So they just pack them into a thing, and they just sell them. They could grow to an 8-foot fish, but they're harvesting them at like 8 inches. And you've heard about the snow crabs dying, billions of
Yes.
crabs up in
This is
Alaska.
quite
So
serious.
yeah, I mean, so you can't, you can't keep, it just isn't working. It isn't working. So a wild caught fishery is in trouble. Like I say, the only sort of sustainable fishery has been lobstering, and now they're going to
So
get hit with.
all these people all over the world, you know, uh, um, they don't. It's like they don't know that the oceans have been ridiculously warm and they don't understand. They just go out to eat and they order a fish plate and they have no clue.
No, nobody has a clue, but the on Swans Island they feel it. You can tell. You could definitely. There's nobody there that you can that will say there's no such thing as sea level rise. Everybody understands it,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
everybody understands that the water is getting warmer. 50% of Maine lobsters are caught way out to sea nowadays. Like they have these large boats, and they have 2 or 3 sternmen, and they go way offshore, and they spend 2 or 3 days doing it. And that's half the lobsters nowadays. You think of it as an inshore fishery, like everybody's coming into a little harbor, and they're just
Yeah.
going all these little places. Well, it was like that for a long time, but now it's
Melanie she said it's not just human induced climate change, it's also overfishing. Is that a problem up there?
well, overfishing has always been a problem. Like I say, besides the lobstering, overfishing was a big thing. There were back in the 80s or so, they had a lot of big trawlers that would go out of Rockland, Maine, and they would go very far out there and they'd catch lots of fish. Guess what? None left. Almost none.
God.
So you can't continue to fish in the ocean and expect to get stuff out. So I guess that's just it's the story of all of our various
It
you know
is. I
exploits,
know.
and the tragedy of the commons. But
And here we are.
yeah, something like lobstering, it was not a commons really. It's almost like a farmed resource.
Is the Atlantic Ocean warmer? I thought the Atlantic Ocean was not as warm as the Pacific Ocean. The
But no,
from
the whole ocean.
it's
There's parts of the Pacific that are cold and parts of the Atlantic that are
yeah,
warm.
it's the different.
Yeah, it's just the North Atlantic is pretty chilly. Yeah, it's pretty well. The Gulf of Maine is cool, but if you go out far enough, you hit the Gulf Stream.
Yes.
which is not in the Gulf of Maine. It's out further out. So this summer we were watching buoys offshore, and the buoys were warming up. So a little bit of Gulf water, the Gulf Stream is kind of
Yeah.
spinning the Gulf of Maine.
Oh my God.
I love this stuff anyway.
Ah, wow.
I mean,
Well,
paying attention to it.
yeah, well, that's what we do. I mean, on this channel, we've got Jim Massa who comes on. He's an oceanographer that lives in Fairbanks, Alaska. He comes on with us. I mean, I bring on as many interesting type of science, like people like you, scientists, non-scientists, doomers,
Yeah.
everybody. Do you know
Yeah.
Carolyn Baker? She's been a guest frequently.
Yes. I think I've heard of it. Yes.
Carolyn is a psychologist, and I think we're due a Carolyn. I bring Carolyn on when I think we need her, her support. Yeah, because you talk about the stages of grief, and boy, we go through them. Sometimes you pull back, sometimes you're not. I mean, a lot of us, I think, have gotten a bit anesthetized, but it still hurts to talk about it and read the research and go through this. All right, here's another question. What other industry is in Maine?
Well,
besides-
Maine has always been it's had logging, of course. I mean, logging is a big industry.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about it, most of Maine is 90% forested.
For
And so
now, still?
Yeah, oh yeah. And I actually used to own, with a friend of mine who's actually a forester.
Yeah.
We owned a maple sugar house and a
that's what you
woodlot
said.
for 20 years, and I learned quite a bit about logging and stuff. We had it logged twice with a skidder. Skidder is a big tractor that pulls the logs out. So
Did you
we had it
replant?
logged. Well, we don't have to replant because
Okay.
in the Northeast you have enough trees that it's kind of like there's a lot. So we had a sort of a fairly good, fairly far along lot. So what we did basically was like thinning your garden. So
Okay.
we cut a lot of popple, which is poplar,
Mm-hmm.
aspen, and they're big. They're really big. So what happens is when you cut them down, the limbs all fall off, and then you drag them out, and they're very heavy. So the first cut, we wanted to cut a lot of stuff for to clear the forest so that we had maple trees, so that the maple trees could grow more. And so we managed to do okay there. And then the second cut, which we called the retirement cut, 20 years later, we cut a lot of red oak and big things, big wood. But of course, we left the maples, and it's very hard to find a good woodlot with a lot of maple, because a maple takes 40, 50 years before it's even tappable. So we wanted to make sure we had a lot of good 10-inch
Yeah.
or bigger trees, maples, and they take a long time to grow.
I know.
So
They're
we had
beautiful.
400 maple taps.
Wow.
And they came down the hill in a tubing, and then we built a maple sugar house out of on the local vocational school, built us a really beautiful sugar house. So we had it moved up there, and then we were able to start boiling. If people know about maple syruping, we're able
Yeah, they do it here. My friend has 60 acres.
to turn on the tubing and turn on the sap tank, and we could start boiling immediately.
Very cool.
It was good, yeah.
And it doesn't hurt the trees.
No, it doesn't. The sort of the deal you're making with the trees, which is kind of cool, is you're opening them up to more light and air. And so, by cutting, trees around them and stuff, you allow their crown to go out. And then, of course, that's the bigger sugar factory. And so you're taking a certain percentage of their sap every year, but you're also giving back light and air. So,
All right,
so
cool.
it's a symbiotic relationship, kind of,
Do you notice up in Maine any kind of difference in the trees? Because here, my property, a lot of the trees are sick. They got damaged. I had a tornado in 2017 hit my property, and that took maples.
Yes.
And but it doesn't. When I walk around and I video, I sometimes put videos up on the channel because I get very upset. There's just so much damage in certain places in this area of New York. What's Maine going through?
Same deal. I mean, well, it isn't. This is the thing I got used to. Is I at first was very worried about all these different things: sugar maple borer. Oh my God, all these different diseases and problems and different things, and lose maples and etc.
Yeah.
But then I began to realize that nature is always doing that. It's always like killing some things off. Some things are dying. I mean, it's like
Well,
humans.
yeah, nature is, but
But-
we
but-
walk in there and
Yeah. Well, 1934 or 1938, there was a huge hurricane, and it knocked down something like half the hardwood trees in the forest. Right. So a hurricane will whip in and knock a bunch of stuff down.
sure, I know. It's terrible.
So if we have stronger hurricanes, that's gonna knock down a lot of
So,
hardwood.
didn't you guys have already experienced what was the highest wind speeds?
Oh, we just recently we had not a hurricane or anything. It was
No,
like 90-mile-an-hour wind speeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It was
and you're not used to that all the time like that.
Well, not from that direction. That's the other thing is, like a hurricane comes from from the south or something. This one was a different direction, slightly different direction, southeast. So all of a sudden, you started having a lot of stuff falling down, and that's the main reason why we were out of electricity for like, a week.
You don't get
and that-
tornadoes up there, right?
Well, we can get tornadoes. We had a tornado, a couple little tornadoes here, but we're not in a big tornado alley. But
Wait, you will be, because I didn't think we would. I never thought we would get hit with a tornado, and it did a lot of damage.
here in Western
In
New York,
Western New York, my house, 2017 July, lost a lot of trees. It smashed my ex-husband's truck, the deck. I mean, it was horrible and very upsetting. And yes, this is what happens.
did it knock down houses and things?
No.
Or? Okay, but
It's very rural here, and it took
Yeah.
a track, and after it left here, it went like through the woods, and it went up to other. But it actually did. It did knock a sawmill out, an Amish sawmill, and it did. I think it was somebody's farm, but very, very rural. But it was my house. Nobody realized. I had to call the town and say, "Look, you have to come into my property and see what happened." They were shocked. And the weekend after that, the guy volunteered with all his own stuff from the town, and he came with a bunch of other people to help us clean it up.
Right.
We don't have it was a wonderful effort. Yeah, it was, but it was still, really stressful. But you know what I did with some of the good wood? I donated it to an artist.
Oh, that's great.
A wood artist. Yeah, we kept and burned what we could, but we donated it, and he made art,
Oh, that's
furniture.
great.
Yeah. All right.
Great.
So let's kind of weave into energy.
Oh, yeah. My
So
favorite.
let's talk about energy. How we'll start small. Your personal energy consumption that you
Yeah.
talked about. Tell us start small, and then let's get into the big picture.
Yeah.
Peak oil and how
Yeah.
fucked we are.
Well, I mean, we're reality. I mean, we managed to cut our fossil fuel use in our household
Yes.
by over half, and we're still doing it. We're still cutting it down. So we managed to change the way we're living, and the fact is, it doesn't even matter. I mean, we're living just as well as we did before when we used more.
Right.
I switched. I had a fairly large truck. I thought, okay, I got a farm. I got to have a truck, So I had a full size truck, and switched it down to a smaller one, and it's fine, right? And my wife, we got a little smaller car, and then of course I helped build the electric car that's in the movie. So we use that for a lot of times. We drive around, but then we also in our household here, of course, the first thing to do is insulate. So we insulate a lot, and we switched from. We still burn a little oil, but we mostly use the heat pump and a wood stove. So that cut out more than half of fossil fuel use there. And just every single thing is just degrees. You cut down so that you're using so much less than you used to. And, it saves a lot of money.
I know, I'm living that. I don't even use, I also burn wood, and I get it from my neighbor, my friends who do it they have 120 acres, and they do this, and they only give me, the only one that buys wood from them. So that's pretty cool. Max and Debbie. And so they know how to do it, without having to damage any place. And I don't use much propane. I back up propane, but I don't use much because most of my house now I've electrified it.
Yep.
And so I'm doing what you're doing. I was watching your video going, oh my God, I'm doing like everything he's doing, except for the electric vehicle, which I don't have.
Well, this electric vehicle.
I don't go anywhere. So that's good.
That was more of a kind of a demonstration thing in a way, because you could really only just drive it around town,
What was it? Tell me. What'd you do? What was the first thing?
Well, the first one was called a Sun EV. And see, I had my students in school. We just like built this little electric car, right?
Okay.
With this friend of mine, Art Haynes, who's like a total genius, And so he would come in, like it was actually my study hall, right? He would come in and we'd work on the electric car all the time. And of course, my study hall kids were like, when's Art showing up? Come on, man, where's Art? And they really got into it. So we finally got it going. It was an electric car, so we thoroughly tested it. It didn't have brakes and stuff, so of course we let the principal drive it, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so he didn't manage to crash himself too badly. But then we took it to a green fair type thing, and that was really fun. These kids got a real charge out of doing that, and we kind of learned about it. And then I built one with him. I helped build it, which means basically I did whatever he needed me to do, like grinding. Okay, every day,
Yeah.
grind. Whatever, I'd cut out side panels. We were building 6 cars at the same time. And then finally I ended up with a little green. I painted it, we painted it John Deere green, or kind of a green color. And
John Deere green. I know, I live there. I have a John Deere green.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we did. Like, I had a little solar panel in the front. So the cool thing about this car was if you ran out of juice, you just pointed at the sun, which is pretty easy to do, and it would kind of like refill itself.
Wow.
So but
Kids must have liked that. They must have really liked that.
Super fun. They loved it. It was so fun just zipping around on the thing.
Yeah.
It's in the movie, and then it's in another one. We have another little film called Infinity Miles Per Gallon. And our foster kid, we had foster kids, so our foster kid is there. And he couldn't really legally drive, but we were in this little place where we were really close to like a Burger King.
Yeah.
So he and his friend were able to drive through the Burger King, the drive-through at the Burger King right next to the movie theater where we were filming. And he, asked for a cheeseburger with extra whatever it was, And so it was a really funny part of the movie, So, we do stuff like that, learn how to do it. And these kids loved it. Then we took it to have you ever heard of the Common Ground Fair? Well, the Common Ground Fair is the green fair in Maine. You have to go next.
Oh, really?
And
how come I've never heard of this?
Oh, come on.
Wow.
3rd week in September. So we took it there, and of course our foster kid and his friend were driving around all over the fairgrounds, right? And they got into, we got into a little low speed chase with the only other cars that are allowed there were golf carts, right? And the golf cart couldn't keep up with our car. So we got in a very low speed chase with the grounds people.
Yep.
And they said, pull over. And then they kept us in a little corral for a while. But, we brought it there for a bunch of years. And people really loved it. And we took it to
cool.
Have you heard of the Solar Fest in Vermont?
Yes.
So we took it to the Solar Fest. And of course, if you have an electric car like that and you're camping out, you say, this is kind of Jevon's paradox, right? You say, should I walk to the outhouse or should I drive the electric car? So of course, you hop in the electric car and drive around everywhere.
Oh my God. I got to put up a comment because this is an important one. See, it's electric cars, but don't they still use rubber, oil, tires, asbestos, brake pads, and grease?
Yes, but let me just say, here's the thing about our electric car. We found that you could drive, my wife especially was really into this, you could drive around and the money that you found on the ground when you were driving around, like say you found a quarter or something, right?
Yeah.
Just on the ground when you're walking around or something, driving around.
Yeah.
That that would get you 25 miles. It's a penny a mile.
Okay, but
Normal car is, how much is a normal car? A normal
a
car is
lot.
a lot per mile. It's like
Yeah.
way, whatever, So the fact is, it's a matter of degrees. Like that electric car was so unbelievably cheap. Like we thought, okay, you'd see something on your electric bill. Nothing at all. Nothing. I couldn't
Yeah.
even.
But nobody's driving them. Well, not here. They are in China, right? The smaller EVs now.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if nobody's doing it. I mean, that's what I feel like. I feel like, yeah, like I say, maybe you kind of have to be a weirdo or whatever. Nobody's doing it, but you know what? Nobody has any choice. Like if you look at the reality of peak oil, now we'll get into the reality of it, right?
All right, let's
The
get in
reality
it.
of it is, right now, maybe a few of us in the developed world can use vast amounts of energy to drive around in like a gasoline car, which costs over $12,000 a year just to keep a car, right?
Yes.
So forget it. In I don't know, 5 years, it's going to be impossible for most people to own a car. So, but you could drive around in this electric car. Or you could drive around in an electric bicycle, or you could get around and get your groceries. You could do it. So it does,
What do you
we all,
see? You see in the next 5 years that car? I mean, you see this in what's the parameter? Your timeline here for saying nobody's going to be driving cars.
well,
Or
we
able
want,
to.
this is the thing is everywhere else in the world doesn't do this.
Right.
You know how many cars there were in the village that I lived in Guatemala?
Probably not a lot.
2.
That's
One
like
guy, really rich, had a Yugo, right?
a Yugo. Yeah. A
A
little.
Yugo, yeah. I like well-shaped feet will get you places in life.
Yeah, that's
What,
Tim.
what was it? Rubber wheels beat rubber heels. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
So, the thing about that little car was you could get around. So it was just a demonstration of how you might be able to get around. Do you know Art Berman?
Yes, I watch all of it now. Yeah.
So he basically says, we're in for a nasty surprise this year. The price of oil could go up much more than people think. But it isn't just the price of oil. It's also the idea that, look, right now we're living in a place where we're $34 trillion in debt, right? So, I'm not like one of those people like, oh my God, the national debt. Like, as long as you can hold the whole thing up, it's great. But what I'm saying is, we've been living so far above our means in this country.
Everybody does, right? Credit debt. Yeah.
Yeah, all of it. So there's no way that, okay, we're going to try to continue to rig the world so that we all get our, 5 gallons a day of fossil fuel equivalents, right? But you couldn't, think about 5 gallons, 5 times 8. It's like 40 pounds. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be hard to even carry this stuff around. And like, think about it. If somebody gave you I think it's the average in the U.S. is something like 2.83 gallons a day for every man, woman, and child, right?
Oh my
So
God.
would somebody like get you 3 gallons of cooking oil a day?
No.
Could you even use it?
No. You're right. Do you see that we're going to collapse? You see
Thanks
this
for
is
credit. The math does not work out. How can
Right.
it possibly work out? How can you possibly give every man, woman, and child 3 gallons of high-powered goo every day? It ain't going to happen. How can it possibly continue to happen?
So what's going to happen?
So we're not going to have it. That's
Where
what
are
people.
we going?
I love it. I love it. Like I know somebody who flies around all the time, and she's great. She's a very nice person and everything. But basically, I was talking about it, and she goes, "Well, they're going to have to do something.
They're going to have to do something. There. Yeah.
They're going to have to do it because I have to keep flying around."
Oh my God.
All right. You think so? Okay. But I was thinking,
Oh,
Nobody
shit.
thinks about this. Nobody thinks about it. Nobody is even in the ballpark of thinking about, like, I hate it. I thinking about it. I go, I like to just like hop in my van and go. I want to go to I want to go to the other end of Maine. I'm thinking of going to Brimfield this summer. I just want to like move, But I could see a time when forget it.
Well, it's
And that,
like going somewhere and saying, well, if the old, I have to see my mother in Florida, and
yes,
I hate flying. I don't want to. I don't want to. It's not that I hate the flying itself. It's I don't want to do this, but I do it. And then my friend says, well, don't worry. If it wasn't your ass in the seat, it's going to be someone else's.
oh no, I
Oh,
agree with that. But what I'm
yeah.
saying is forget it. I mean, think about that thing. Like, think about a typical jet, right? I mean, a couple of I figured it out, and I've flown 50 times in my life,
Okay.
right? And was figuring it out. Like, they're almost pretty much long haul flights. I didn't do very short hauls. I'd like, Guatemala or Europe or, California or something, right? So I figured it out. And, every one of those flights that's like a third, you know, of your whole driving for the
Budget.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah. It's
energy
there.
budget. It's
So,
insane.
yeah. So what I'm saying is, like, how much longer do you think they're going to stuff everybody into these like giant,
Tin cans that are falling apart because
converter-
we're cutting corners and doors are falling off.
well,
Shit.
it's not just that they take an
Ugh.
enormous amount of maintenance. The whole system is too complicated. It's way too complicated. So there's no, I mean, I don't know. You just look at I'm sorry, you just look at it and you just go, okay, how's that going to keep going? How are they going to keep easy flying and going? It's not going to happen.
So let's move back a little bit.
Yeah.
When you first talked about peak oil and you first learned about it, did you believe that it was going to be okay? It's peak oil, and did you see that the shale revolution was going to come?
No. And I was thinking
I
that
want to
was the
hear this.
amazing thing they did
Hmm.
was they managed to keep it going. But here's the problem is, here we've kept going for the last 10 years, maybe. Well, the thing is, if it had, that 10 years would have been time that we could have figured something out, figured a simpler way of life out or something, or figured something out, but we can't do it. We have to just go full blast right into the wall.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Right into the wall.
I mean, that's it. Well, of course we're heading into the wall. How else does it work?
Well,
That's
yeah,
it.
you're with a bunch of doomers here.
No, it's not,
No, I
it's like,
know.
here's the thing is I figured out also that the only thing that's going to save us is peak oil because
Yeah.
otherwise we're going to cook ourselves off the planet. So the only way to actually save ourselves is if Gaia cuts us off, kind of,
If we
We
run
can't,
out.
we can't do it ourselves. I mean, I don't think we're going to run out, but what the problem is going to be, there are going to be places that they just don't have the energy to keep them up.
Except for the military. And I have a comment here I have to bring up again. The
Yeah.
U.S. Air Force, we're an interactive show here
Yeah.
with our chat. The U.S.
Yes.
Air Force burns through 2.4 billion gallons of jet fuel a year, all of it derived from oil, reported in an article in Scientific American. My
Yeah.
God, how's America going to keep that, that military industrial complex going?
Well, we're
Shit.
not.
We're not.
Well, we're not, but we're going to try. Everything's going to be tried. Every single thing is going to be tried. We're going to do everything we can. But then the reality is that we're not going to be able to, how we're going to afford 2.4 billion, gallons a year.
No, we're not. I mean, I've had Simon Michaud on as a guest, and he talks about energy and he talks about doing things differently.
Yeah.
Then I've also had Max Wilbert on the show, and he was he was in the big Thacker Pass protest against the lithium mine from Lithium America. How do you look at that? How do you look at all the lithium that's going to be needed for all this electric business as usual?
Forget it.
It's
I've talked to Simon Michaud. Forget it. There is no way you can do it. I mean, the car that we had used lead acid batteries, right?
yeah.
And the thing with the lead acid batteries is they're endlessly recyclable. It's like you take it in just like your your car battery, and you just get them changed, right? And they take the cores and they use all the stuff, right? But lithium, lithium is going to be a problem. But the other thing is everybody sort of thinks we're just going to switch seamlessly right from what we're doing now. We're going to have an electric car that's exactly like the car I have now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hop in that thing and I'm going to go 60 miles an hour to wherever I want to go.
Yeah.
And then they also think, I even talked to somebody who said they thought they're going to be electric airplanes. We're going to get in this electric airplane and we're going to just do, everything's going to be
I've been reading about the technology, but I don't know. It's crazy.
The transition, I mean, the thing about the transition is the transition is not into the same thing that we're in. I love all this stuff. I love solar panels. I love, electric cars. I love all this stuff. I love the idea of it and the idea that we might be able to have a low energy, high tech future. I love that. But, then you talk to somebody like Simon Michaud and the numbers don't.
Baby, the Jetsons just are not going to happen. Right.
Well, and I don't think we need the Jetsons. We just need to chill out, but we can't.
Well, we have too many people, first of all, to chill. You said something about this. I wanted to ask you, you said something about the future in one of the interviews. I watched you on Andres. I want you to tell everybody about his channel, by the way, what you do with the panel. But about living in communities, smaller communities. But then what happens to the cities? And how do all these people, what are they going to trample everywhere and there'll be nothing left?
They're not even taken out of the cities. Here's the scary thing is, these cities, look what happened. There was a big hurricane down in Texas, right? And most people got in their cars and they got stuck on the highway about 10 or 20 miles outside of the city. Jeez. Because they run out of, not 10 or 20 miles. Yeah, 10 or 20 miles because they're not moving fast. Everybody gets on the highway. Everybody's using gas. They all run out of gas. They're 10 or 15, maybe New York City, maybe 100 miles out of New York City. Mm-hmm. That sounds bad, but the fact is, it's just, look at the place. You can't hold a lot of these places. And, this is going to sound mean or something, but I don't want to anything bad happen. But like New Orleans, once you don't have a pump or something, New Orleans fills up like a bowl. Miami, just forget it. Miami, there's no place to go. It's a low area, and then it goes back into a low area in the Everglades. I mean, there's all sorts of cities that they can't work. There's no way.
And Americans don't realize that we are on the way to an eternal migrant crisis.
Right. Phoenix, all these places, you don't realize they're already in trouble. So I think the thing about it is small communities is definitely going to become the way to go. You have to get to a place, and it's going to be like a sort of a little mean game of musical chairs, trying to find your way to a place that actually works. And, we know it, we could feel it in Maine, when the COVID crisis happened, all these people started showing up in Maine, all these people, and they're just living there or whatever. They're just hanging out, which is fine. But what I'm saying is, you have to find a place that is kind of okay and just live there and be happy with, okay, I got some water. I've got a garden spot. Find a community that wants your help. I love that idea. You sort of got to find a place. And I think it would help to go find this place before it gets bad, because you want to kind of get to know people and see what works. And
it's a privileged few. It's a privileged few. That's the problem.
Well, you could call it a privileged few, or you can also call it reality, because, Elliot Coleman, I talked to him and I said, we're never going to be able to, keep as many people alive without having, on organic food as we could with other things. And he said, no, you can keep a lot of people involved in organic farming. You get yields as high as anything else, but that requires, instead of one person growing everything, that requires 50 people. And those 50 people are, hilling their potatoes, and they're doing this, and they're making sure that all these inputs go into the garden, etc. So you can live just as good a life, but I'll tell you what, 60% of your time is going to be spent, farming and cutting
Well,
wood.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No, I don't either, but most people aren't going to go for it.
Most people aren't going to make it.
No.
And it's really horrible to think about it. But, it's like every species goes extinct.
Well, I don't think we're going to go extinct. We're going to drop back to this village level. Like Andre is always talking on, we have a thing
Yes,
called,
talk about that channel and the
yeah,
chat.
about that. And, we all have our different little things, and I'm kind of into, community, but Andre really likes the idea of a forest community where,
Yeah.
you kind of live in balance with the earth too, and I really love his ideas. And I personally, I'm Scandinavian, so I like the idea of living in a place where there's a lot of woodlands.
Me
And
too.
living,
That's why I'm here.
yeah. Like living on the
The
with
forest.
a forest.
Yeah, in the forest.
Yeah. So I like that. But anyway, what I'm saying is there's different people have different ways of looking at it. And, the way I see it is you want to find a kind of a community that could work,
Yeah.
and pretty soon, because, we're going to run out of options. That's the other thing, is all of us people who feel like we're, middle-class people, we can go do anything and be everywhere, and, all this kind of thing. You kind of feel like a little megalomania in the middle of the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 20th century. Like, okay, I'm just going to go off to, wherever and be do everything, Well, that's not happening. That's going to, your options are going to sort of slowly fill in, and so eventually you want to just be on, like, if you can get a couple acres, or be in a nice little town or something,
Well, I saw the writing on the wall. That's why I did this. And it was my ex-husband who showed me this area, and I knew that it was very affordable. And I said, this is what I got to do, because I saw the writing on the wall when I got this place. And I'm glad I did, but I just feel like I'm one of the, privileged people. And I don't think the people that live here, it's very red, it's very right wing. I don't think they understand the privilege that they have to live in a place like this, because there's not a lot of employment,
No, there isn't. That's the other thing that starts to happen, is there isn't a lot of employment. And, you think about it, to get to that employment, you have to get in a car and you have to drive there.
Yeah,
And that's
definitely. That's here.
That's-
Here, let me, there was somebody, Gregory. He says, living in the forest here in BC is nice if we don't lose it to wildfires this summer or next. Where does Andre live, and where does he see himself being in a place that's not going to burn up?
No, I was thinking about it here in Maine. The fact that we're 90% forested means it's just a couple of droughts, and then all of a sudden the place burns.
That's
so
scary.
no, there is no. That's the crazy thing about climate change, is you begin to realize there is no safe place.
No.
You just have to kind of and I kind of like to keep a foot in both worlds and things. I mean, I just sold it to my nephew, but I had a 19-foot sailboat with a deep keel, and I was thinking, okay, you could get in that thing and you could go if you needed to, even if there's no fossil fuels or whatever. You just hop in.
Yeah, I knew somebody that wanted to do that.
Well, I don't mean for like, oh, wonderful, let's sail around. I mean,
no, that was going to be their survival plan.
Friggin' escape. I mean, I think from big cities, the only way you're going to be able to get out if it's on the ocean is hop in a boat, and not a sailboat type
And
thing.
the thing about cities, or people in cities, are just trying to eke out a living and buy food and keep their families fed, and I like the idea for cities of people with community gardens and all the open plots, at least for as long as they can, that these short-sighted, growth-oriented, stupid morons on town boards, all they want to do is build, and they should be taking all that land and not building, and they should be making community gardens and trying to rewild areas in
Oh,
cities.
I agree. I agree completely. I mean, there are cities that can. The other thing is there are cities that will make it. You know what I think the big prerequisite for a city is going to be, you're not going to be able to get everything around with trucks anymore.
No, that's what Alice
So,
Friedman, isn't that what is it?
yeah,
Alice? Yeah, she talks about.
trucks are running. So obviously the only way to move a big poundage of stuff around is by water.
Do you know, I saw a picture the other day that depicted how many cargo ships were. You know how you can go on FlightAware and you see what's in the. Okay, this was all the cargo ships now. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. That it was insane what's on the waters. And you're saying that's the only way. And now they took the aerosol to change the sulfur, right, in it. Now we've lost the aerosol masking effect, so now we're warmer. What do you know about that? Do you guys discuss that on
Yeah.
Andre's channel?
That,
Because you're in
that's
that panel.
that's pretty scary, because the idea is that they're using low sulfur fuel, and all that sulfur up there basically had a little masking effect, and it like a half a degree Celsius right there. So we could lose that. That's the scary thing, is if you lose all this diesel being burned, or bunker C, whatever they burn in, you know, uh, a lot of those ships and factories and things, then you lose this aerosol masking and you get another half a degree C.
Yeah, which is what Leon Simmons says happened.
Yeah.
Are you
And
familiar with Leon?
Leon Simmons,
Oh,
I got
we've
to
got to get you familiar with some of these people.
write down some of these people. But
Yes,
no, but
I'll send
is,
them to you.
I know about the aerosol masking, and it's like scary.
Well, Guy
But
McPherson was the first one to talk about it that I knew of. Really talk about it. Guy did.
I like your friend here said, only environmental coffee house is safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On Tuesday night and Friday night.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So we've covered a lot. I suppose I want to go into, now that we know that cities are pretty, how do you think these small communities are going to be able to exist? We have political strife. We've got people hating everybody now. I mean, do you see that stopping? I mean, we're going into authoritarianism. How is that going to work?
Well, I was talking to my town selectman, and I managed to. We got into the subject of red flag laws. Like a red flag law. Well,
Yeah.
Maine has this weak yellow flag law, right? So the yellow flag law obviously didn't work, and Lewiston happened, right? And all these people died here in Maine, right? So we were talking about it, and he said, "You liberals are you don't understand. You're so naive. What I'm going to have to do is," he basically said, he's going to have to, he has to have a big clip, a big magazine, so that he said, when the lights go out, them people are going to start to attack his house, right? And he said he has to be able to kill 4 in the front and 4 in the back or something. And I was like, look, Harold, nobody wants anything in your stupid house. Believe
My
me. You know what I mean?
God.
But I mean, I was just I just realized I got into his head, and I just realized how nuts he was. And then I
Well,
said,
but a lot of
you know,
people think that the marauders are going to come all over. I feel
I
sometimes
know
like that could
I
happen.
lived I lived in a town in Guatemala. There was a war going on, right? And they had armed guards at the entrances and exits of every part of the town, right? And what it did is it calmed the place down, and you didn't have death squads coming in, right? And so you realize it sounds bad, but I mean, it's the
It's
truth, right?
happening in Haiti right now.
Yes, yes. But so I live there, right? And I've got to say, it's a community solution is the only way to make the place work. You can't possibly have a big enough magazine to buy yourself security. Just forget it. It isn't going to happen. You're not going to do that. I'm not completely against guns, obviously.
No, we're not. I like to shoot. I talk about
But
it all the time.
I just can't see. There's no way to like keep yourself safe with more firepower. You're not a military. You're not an army. Whatever. The only way you can do it is with a community solution. That's it. That's only security, really, in my opinion.
I like it. That's how I see it too. And I like to think that that around here it could be. The Amish people, at least, they're very helpful to me. I feel really lucky that I have Amish neighbors, and I have
Yes.
other neighbors, and we have what we have. Here. Well, let me ask you a question. What do you think? I'm going to give you a time. We never really talk about time. I hate to say, what's your prognostic? When are we going to be fucked? But I'm going to give you a 20-year.
Yeah.
And based on your conversations, you have these energy conversations all the time with the big ones, with these important people, I think.
Yes.
20, give me a 20-year thought of energy and geopolitical. What do you think?
You really want to know?
Yeah.
You don't want to know.
Yeah, we do.
All right. Well, John Peach has figured it out, right? He's the guy, right?
Yep.
And if we continue at our present rate of consumption, we only have like 16 years left. But there's no way we're going to continue this present rate of consumption. So it maybe last a little longer. We're talking just the fossil fuels, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking. So we're at the end of this game. I mean, literally, we're not.
Says every guest I ever have. Yeah.
Well, no,
Yeah.
I mean, but this one here, this guy John Peach, I mean, he really has figured it out, and we're not. We're pretty far along in our trajectory. Our 100 years. Like you think about it. Yeah, runaway climate change is. This is the other thing is. It's kind of like a little horse race, and you don't know which one's going to win, peak oil or climate change. And I've begun to realize, like, climate change could be, that could actually cause human like extinction. Peak oil is a drag. I mean, peak oil is a real bummer, and it took a long time to get used to that and stuff. But peak oil, okay, it's just going to be like a really bad, okay, our standard of living is going down, right? But yeah, the climate change is kind of going to be even worse. So I kind of feel like, we're now going to enter, I call it Gaia's self-cleaning oven cycle, right?
Oh yeah. Okay.
Gaia's self-cleaning oven cycle. So it's going to happen. So it's just like a question of severity. So if we can kind of like wean ourselves a little bit off of fossil fuels and not use as much of it, then maybe it won't be as bad, and some of us will make it.
Right. Like Max Wilbert said a softer collapse.
Yes.
But my other friend said bullshit on that, but I don't know.
I kind of agree. I don't think there is any such thing as a soft collapse. I mean, like, okay, the city of Rome went from over 1 million people to less than 40,000, and it wasn't that long. It was a while, but it just so slowly went down. So
it's what civilizations do. It's what's for dinner.
Yeah. I mean, I lived in Central America with the Mayans, and I kind of felt like the Mayans were kind of like, oh, okay, you guys are doing this big thing, all right, like, yeah, we tried that. It didn't work out so great. Yeah, we are kind of going into self-cleaning oven mode right now. I mean, you think about it already. I mean, okay, this little El Nino really gave us a little shock, because typical El Nino is a 0.5 degree warming overall over the whole world, right? And so we're feeling it particularly badly right now. And the last big one was 2016, right? So, it's kind of a stair step up, and then we're going to go back down into La Nina, and it's going to seem a little mellower. Of course, it also juices up the hurricane season in the North Atlantic, right?
Yeah.
So that's not going to be so fun. But I mean, just in general, it's going to be, we're kind of, push, and then it goes back down a little, and then push, and it's just going to start pushing. And want to hear something interesting about the sea level rise? Was the last time in Maine that we that we had a record sea level, like an ocean event, was
Yeah.
1978. And
1978?
yeah, 1978, it came up and the ocean, it was a really powerful storm and pushed it up. And since 1978, we've had exactly 4.8 inches of sea level rise. Well, this one broke the record by 4.8 and some places 5 inches.
Holy shit.
So it's all sea level rise. This was just as strong a storm as we had in 78, and it knocked out all the wharfs. And, here we go.
Here we go. All right. We do this thing on Environmental Coffee House. It's called the Flush of the Day.
Yes.
And we choose something to flush away. What would you like to flush away tonight?
We want me to really, okay.
Well,
I think
if we could flush something away, what would you like?
air travel, jet travel. Get rid of it.
Goodbye. All right.
What?
All right.
Yeah.
So the Environmental Coffee House flush of the day was air travel, which I actually agree with, because when I don't have to anymore, I'm not going to, even though I have family begging me to come out west for one more big trip. It's like one more big trip. Oh.
Well, I would do it because
Right.
how are they going to do it? How are they
And
going to
I'm
make it?
getting older. It's like not like I'm going to be able to do this, but I don't know if I can even afford it. Actually, and I don't like. I hate being like squished in like sardines, but people have to work. Now I want to do the quick thank yous, because right now Nadia, she's in Germany, and Nadia is very generous. Thank you, Nadia. Hello, von Berlin. I can't read it. I've told Berlin that the greenhouse effect is more extreme than advertised. That's what she said. And she's there right now. She sent pictures in our Discord, and they're awesome. I love her so much. And she said, hopefully I haven't missed the whole thing. I got a phone call from California while I was in Berlin. With infinite energy, climate wouldn't matter. With no pollution, energy would be much easier. Cheers. Is that even possible?
No.
She knows that. And thank you, Hans. Ragnarok.
Ragnarok. Ragnarok is the end of that's the battle at the end of the world in Norse mythology.
I love him. He's the best. He's definitely the best. Thank you, guys. They are very, very special. Let's see. I'm looking for any here's Obsolete. He runs our Discord. We have a Discord. Lots of people are in there and chat freely. The conspiracy is not that climate change is a hoax. The conspiracy is that it's way more than we're being told. Biosphere collapse has beaten the controllers to the intersection, and they're panicking.
I agree. Completely.
Good one, Brett.
Yeah.
Brett's awesome. He's been a guest on the show, and I'm so thankful for him. I'm thankful for all of you, for everybody. You have no idea. This is a family, this Environmental Coffee House. We have totally built a family. Wait a minute, something's going on. I have to push a button, and it better not fuck up my screen. Just a second. Nope, it didn't. I don't know. Electronics. There's this thing telling me the power's going off in 5 minutes, which is ridiculous, unless one of the cats messed with one of the cords. Only on the monitor, but hang on. Okay, I pushed the button. Hey, Bob. What else do we have here to talk about with everybody? Thank you, guys. I don't know. There's a lot of comments. Anybody have any questions that they would like to ask our esteemed guests? Ivor, why don't you tell them who you are with on that channel and where they can find that channel?
Okay, that is called Peak Oil Chat, and you'll find it on YouTube. As we do it live, but then it's kind of you can find it on YouTube, Peak Oil Chat.
And the Peak Oil group is on Facebook.
Yeah, oh yeah, we have the
Peak
Oil
Facebook
group that we've always talked on there all the time, and they're kind of some characters. It's really fun. But Peak Oil Chat is just a special thing on YouTube, and we've talked to Simon Michaud, and we're going to have another one next Tuesday, and we're going to try to get the East, the people from Europe and the people from Hawaii and China all together.
I see. You do that at like 9 in the morning sometimes, in
Yeah,
Eastern time. Yeah, yeah.
but this one here is going to be Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time next Tuesday, the 19th.
All right, I'll have to get the. Excuse me. I'll get the link because I like Andre's channel and I like the panel. So when I found you guys, I started watching all of them and nobody was. And now finally he's getting on the panel shows, he's getting the views because the conversation is, I'm learning and it's fascinating. But tell us about some of the panelists that have been on.
Steve St. Angelo was on there the last time, and he is fascinating. He's more, he talks about the financial implications of peak oil, and that's in some ways just as scary and different. You really look at the way things work that way. He's fantastic. He does the SRS Rocco report. And then we also have a guy by the name of Leon Mead, who's really into permaculture and stuff. He's from
Yeah, I like that.
China. He's English. And who else we have? We've had Simon Michaud, and we have had a really nice guy named Dune Wyborn, who's from Australia.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, he lives in kind of like a geodesic dome or something in the middle of Australia, and he moved to an intentional community, and so he's kind of waiting.
It's a very interesting chat, and I think Andre's done a great job building this. And getting this together. And I give him a lot of credit. Kudos to Andre. Logan, whatever he calls himself, but he's terrific. Yeah.
Zavorgan.
Zavorgan, I know. And then he has he calls himself Logan sometimes. Andre Logan Zavorgan.
Middle names or something, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
He's actually, he's a Ukrainian originally.
Is he? Where does he live? Is he in the States?
He lives in
dox him or anything.
No, but he lives up in Ontario.
Oh, he's Canadian. Okay, he's in Canada. Yeah. All right, let's see, guys. I have a couple more questions. I thought I had a couple more questions. Oh yeah, let's see. What is the replacement for oil?
I have to say that there's never been anything like oil. So I was talking to a friend of mine, actually a Ukrainian friend of mine, and he said, well, they're going to come up with cold fusion. They're almost there. And, the thing about cold fusion is it's always been 30 years away. So we looked on Google, and it's 25 years away.
25 years. Oh,
well, supposedly to make it work. So there is no real, there's nothing that is that energy dense. So we're going to go back to like more diffuse sources of energy or,
Yeah, nothing. Okay. Do you publish your environmental art?
Yeah, I kind of do. I do different things.
Send me something where I could send people, or is it not like that?
Environmental art has never been a real big seller. I've done things, but it's not been, it's not, I do better with, Christmas cards and things,
Okay.
And of course I have my movie, Pico.
There you go. That's right.
But it's all on YouTube, so you just find it on YouTube,
Yeah, I think I put that link in on the show notes before so people could watch it before they came in. Australia. Wanda. The one about the ratio of sea level rise to storm surge?
Yeah. The storm surge, there's always going to be a big storm surge with every storm, right? So this last one in Maine, there was a big storm surge. So the storm surge is like 3 or 4 feet or something huge, right? But it was 4.8 inches higher than the highest, the last big one. So it's clearly sea level rise that pushed it. And so that's the problem is you have to build things. Like I was thinking, okay, this wharf, I'm glad I sold it. But anyway, the wharf, the thing about it is now you got to rebuild your wharf. You got to rebuild it. I would say if you want to make it to the end of the century, you better rebuild it 4 feet higher. My art link is iverlofving.com.
Oh, okay. I'll put it in the show notes.
Iver Lofving, LOFVING.com. I have an art.
That's what we want to see. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, that's great. That's
yeah.
great.
And no, I kind of I find I do a lot of I have a lot of environmental art.
Here's one. Climate teacher John. We love him. Great. You've got clean green bulldozers. Now, so what? They're still bulldozers. Richard
Right.
Vogel, my late great ecology professor.
We can't do it. We can't switch seamlessly over to, an electric alternative. And I don't know if we would really want to. We
Well,
can't
not
continue.
like this. Like Gozer's asking. He's like, how come people have 500-mile commutes? They
It's
have to
insane.
fly. I did it. I know. I used to have to fly
Yeah.
for my job. In
Yes.
the day. I did. I flew back and forth throughout New York. I had to go to New York City, Syracuse, Rochester. We did the mix of the train, but I flew in, or I'd fly to New York City in the morning and come home at night.
That was important people in the 20th century.
Yeah, sickening. I didn't even think I was so important.
I don't know if it's sickening or whatever. It was just the way we did things.
Yeah, I didn't know any better at the time. I
Yeah.
really didn't. I mean, I just, and then of course the internet came. We got a lot more connectivity without having to do as much traveling. But it was like that. It really
No,
was.
I was flying all over the place. I mean, I used to take trips with kids every year, and we'd go to, Spain or Costa Rica or Guatemala, different places. But see, I got to say, before that, I wasn't really traveling. I was living in Guatemala,
Right.
but I spent a lot of time traveling, and they would send me places, with jobs I had. They'd send me to San Francisco and stuff, and like I'm not to turn that down. I'm hopping on that plane and going out there. So I'm not, like I say, I've flown 50 times in my lifetime. I just choose not to now because I'm just
I know. I know. It's tough. It's tough. It's tough because it's the family thing is my problem, and that's a big problem. Is that people move all over? That's what we did, and now that's going to have to stop. Families are going to have to stay close together.
Well, you actually have a reason to go someplace. A lot of people don't, right? They don't have to go see their relatives or anything. They're just going to, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. I have a friend that, well, she just sent me a gazillion pictures of Antarctica. She went on one of those big cruise ships.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting her down. The pictures are beautiful. It's not my place to put her down, but they sold their house and they are going to just keep doing this. And,
Sure.
but the cruise ships, that industry that's got to go, that's got to go. They're
Well,
horrible.
they'll become the Hulks. Do you
Yeah.
remember in Great Expectations? They had the Hulks. The Hulks were like places with prison ships, right?
Yeah.
You think about it, you could just park one of those off of someplace and it becomes the Hulks, So I think they're just going to be these big boondoggles, really. But, here's the thing is what we really should be doing is we
Wait,
should be
wait.
figuring out.
Well, she's never been on a plane. Yay.
No, it's great. I have a friend who's he's a former chief of the Penobscot Nation, and he is a super he's super tough on the flying thing, and I kind of respect him because he's so intense. He's like super, environmental. I mean, I don't, pick on people for flying too much, but he really does. And I kind of feel like, okay, Barry, give it to him, because it is, I was thinking about it, you're going to see your grandchildren or something, but your grandchildren aren't going to have this, every time you do it, you're taking a third of the energy that they could use to cut wood or something,
I don't have
mean,
any grandchildren. I never will. So,
No, me either. We had foster kids, right? And they're fine, but here's the other thing is look around the United States. What is actually going on? Most of these people are not flying around. Most of these people are living in a very simple way. They're living in little houses and they're trying to heat the trailer or something.
the billionaire class.
And the other thing is, right, a lot of people have fallen out completely. And so I think kind of what they're doing is they're making people, they're not intentional. This is maybe not intentional or whatever, but there are a bunch of people who have fallen out of this. I just took a bunch of food to the homeless shelter, and they were really happy to get it, right? But there's a lot
Yeah.
of people there, right? So all these homeless people, they aren't using any energy at all. So they've fallen out of society. They're just like out, right? And then the rest of us are sitting around and we're driving around in cars and we're doing all this stuff because they've eliminated a certain number of people from being high consumers. So we're already going down that path.
Kind of like what Tim said, the problem is each other, not billionaires, Sandy. I think it's
Well,
both.
I think it's both. I think the billionaires are definitely the ones that are using
It's
a lot of this
both.
stuff. But I mean, I'm not even like blaming anybody. I'm just like, look
Right.
at it. Go, okay, this is the way they figured it out. Everybody's going to live in the friggin' homeless shelter. And I was just there, and they have, a big log burner thing, like a giant wood outdoor wood furnace, right? And they burn giant logs in there, and they sit in there, and they like my wife does a soup kitchen in Waterville, and so I just delivered all that was left over. It was actually corned beef and cabbage. It was really good, right? And potatoes and carrots, and it was really great. So they were really psyched to get it, and I just feel like that's where we got to put our energy. We're going to put I don't care.
Communal living.
Yeah, and not just communal. Like I'm going to keep feeding the poor. I'm going to keep getting local candidates that look like they're actually going to do something environmental. I mean, remember what Winston Churchill, we're going to fight them on the beaches. We're going to fight them on whatever, we're going to keep going. You know what I mean? So what, you cannot fall to despair. You just have to do what you can.
I like that. It's easy for some to fall to despair, and some people write to me, and I feel terrible. I don't know what am I supposed to do? When you tell me you don't want to be here because of all this, when there's always something you can do.
Yes.
There is
Yes.
always, even stupid for me with the damn adopted rescue cats. I mean, but there's always
Right, yes.
something.
Yes, those kitties, they love it. Like I just actually one is like walking around my feet right now, the crazy little rescue cat.
Yeah. Well,
She was-
I feel that way. I definitely do. But
yeah, we have to just keep going and keep figuring out ways to make this place work for not just us, but like the people around us,
for the 16 years,
Well, 16, look, the
I'm-
16 it is a drag, but that just means that the world isn't going to work the way we're
going to
all
change.
used to it working. Here's the kitty right here.
Hi, kitty,
Anyway.
kitty. I cannot let any of my cats in here when I do this. They would
No.
step on this. Oh, sweet. Look at
She's going to
that.
try to. Now she's going to get behind the
She's
computer.
cute. Jennifer always likes to show her cat. I just can't let anybody in. Nope, because they will. They'll walk all over everything and ruin a whole
Yes.
show. I
She's a
can't
bit-
do it.
But no, I
Yeah.
don't. I think we got to figure out ways of making what we have here work.
Yeah.
Because it's everybody thinks it's the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. There's always the world continues. The Earth abides, but we're not gonna be able to fly off to Antarctica or wherever.
What flavor is that cat? I got
Uh,
the best cat on the
Coon
planet.
cat, Maine coon cat,
Flavor. We're gonna be eating some kitty.
Yeah, that kitty. That cat actually.
That's funny.
We
Wow,
can
we've been an hour and 42 minutes. I have enjoyed every minute. This has been fun. I've enjoyed this. This is
Yeah.
good. You're gonna have to
it's-
come back, but I'm gonna pair what I like to do, like you're in that group of people that talk, but I also like to pair interesting people with other interesting people. I have a team here, and I got to think about who I could pair you with. Maybe you and Jim. I think you and Jim, the oceanographer from Alaska. I
Sure.
definitely think you guys might have some hell of a discussion. That would be interesting. I'm very happy that you came. Everybody, how you doing out there? I want to thank you for the super chats. And I think we got to most everything I could get to. Or I think we'd be here 2 hours, and I can't do the marathon shows. They kill my back. All right, let's see. Anybody else? Team is anti-union speak. No, it's not. We are a union. Stop it.
Oh no, We're all about
it.
union.
Stop it. He's
Power in a
teasing.
union.
I know, Drew. He's teasing me. He's
I was
totally.
actually I was a union member for over 30 years.
Yeah, and he didn't see the show I did last Wednesday night about what's going on. But all right, doom and not doom. And hi, Tommyist. There is a restless, agitated striving associated with human beings. This trait has caused many of our problems.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think you definitely have something there. Well, I'm going to say thank you to everybody. Jean, thank you so much. Iver, I have completely enjoyed this. I hope you come back again. I always ask everybody, do you have anything you want to say to bring up the rear?
The cat is right in front of me. I guess what I'd like to say is I think, okay, it is, like, as I said in my film, if you get a chance to see the film, it's on YouTube.
It's in the link.
You'll see that even though, hope is a chimera, who knows, hope is strange, but, like, don't give up. Just live one day at a time and figure it out. And we live in interesting times. And this is exciting to live in an interesting time.
I would say you are pretty right. Pretty right. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you on Tuesday night. Tonight, don't forget, right after this, get to the Letter Hack channel. And he'll be doing his thing, and he'll be reading his novella. And he's a comic book artist, and I do a show with a bunch of people on Wednesday nights that's more political. So he runs that. So go to the Letter Hack. See ya. Love ya. I gotta put this one up. Stay woke, stay gay, peace on. Now go raid the Letter Hack. Yeah, baby. All right. Thank you, sweetie pie. This has been great. It has been great.
Thank you so much.
Bye.